tell me a little bit about you, Damien. Tell me a little bit about your background and what you're up to in life.
I wear a number of different hats, I guess. Like one of the things, like it's really interesting because I do work. Like I've got a 9 till 5. I'm doing the parenthesis things with my fingers because I know you can't see me. I've got a 9 till 5 kind of job, which is like I'm deemed an essential service too. Like I do work in an aged care related field, but none of the work that I do is with face-to-face contact with people. So that's kind of what I do for work. But for me, I've always told people that I do that to then fund my music addiction and my creativity addiction. Because I see myself, I guess, as like a musician who just doesn't earn any money for it. So that's kind of where I draw a lot of my passion and a lot of my life energy is from the creative process. And at the moment, that manifests itself a lot through music.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, it's funny how a lot of us do that, where we have full-time jobs that kind of sustain our actual interests in life. So, yeah, I totally resonate with that.
Okay, which I guess is one of the things too about this whole COVID thing, isn't it? Because there's so much in which, that we do in a life to make the life meaningful and to make it worth something. And that might be going to like a pub trivia on a Tuesday night, or it might be going and having lunch with friends at the pub on a weekend, or it might be going to the theatre, whatever it might be. And when all of a sudden those things aren't there anymore, it, as you say, it starts to make you go, well, what is the purpose of my life right now?
Yeah. So what was happening before COVID-19? Paint a picture of what was really important to you before this all went down.
I guess for me, like I try to paint my life in very broad brushstrokes. So rather than having a very narrow kind of thing that says, I am a telemarketer at Telstra or whatever it might be. That's not what I do. But I try to look at broad things and go, okay, I am creative, right? Being creative is essential. I'm relational. That's something that is essential to who I am.
Yeah.
I am useful. And so these are kind of things that I look at and go, okay, those are key character traits to who I am. And then how they manifest will probably depend a lot on the circumstances. So in some ways, my pre-COVID existence wasn't that different in its essence. It was just different in its outworking. So I would go to places of work. So I would leave my home. I would go to regular events at pubs and clubs as a musician. I would be performing gigs at a lot of places. So I would definitely be out a lot more and socializing a lot more physically than what I have been, since this all started.
Yeah. Well, definitely. I mean, you are always out in the scene doing music and working on your albums and out there drawing. Damien is an amazing artist as well. So, yeah, like I can imagine that it would be quite the change. So what's really shifted for you in terms of, if you're looking at now, like we're in home isolation, we're all being told to stay at home, like what are you looking at now that's really different that has you go, I wonder, if any of that stuff I was doing before was all that important really? Is there anything that kind of stands out for you?
Some of the stuff, I guess, and again, within my job, like it's really interesting when you start looking and going, oh, well, these components of my job can actually be done, from home off a laptop or whatever. So it's something, you go, well, my work-life balance is probably even better now. And I'm in a job which gave me some great work-life balance, but now it's even better. And I'm like, well, this is really cool. And this is one of those things I guess talked about beforehand that I sort of hope that society as a whole, when we come out the other side of this, doesn't just go back to how we were doing things pre-COVID, but actually looks and goes, well, what have we learned and how can we be a better society at the end of it? So that's probably one thing that's changed. How I express my creativity has changed. So obviously I'm not able to go out and perform live performances. And that desire to be creative is obviously still there. And that's something that needs to, like, I believe anyway, it needs an expression or else, it will literally kill me. Like it will destroy part of my soul and that will, the physical, I just believe that, if we're not expressing that side of ourselves, we're dying. So for me, I've been, experimenting. I've done a few live stream gigs, which has been fun. I recently bought myself some video editing software, so I've been learning how to edit and make film clips and things, which has been fun. I've started working on another album. So yeah, there's been a lot of creative stuff that's come out of this, and I've actually found that not having the distractions of things to go to or people to see or whatever, I've been able to focus a lot more energy into that as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. So tell me a bit more about the album that you're working on at the moment.
So what I'm doing at the moment, because I'm not able to go out and perform so much, I'm kind of, I've got 2 albums out at the moment, and they've kind of been a progression in my own musical development. And a lot of the stuff that previously was in there was very guitar oriented, because I'm a guitar player, so that's what I do. But now that I'm not out there live playing guitar and I'm kind of just sitting at home, I've been using a lot more electronic sounds like synthesizers and things like that. So the new album's going to have a far more pop synth kind of feel about it, and almost like a rock synth feel about it, which scares me a bit because I don't know how I'm going to perform that live when eventually we do get to go out again. But I'm really loving the sounds that I'm creating. So I've got the first single coming out on the 8th of May. And one of the other great things is that because I kind of had some money in my savings account that I was going to put towards travel within the next 6 months, and I can't see Australia opening the borders within that time now. So I've kind of been able to go, okay, well, that money, yes, I could just leave it in the bank account for when we do open up, or I'll go, well, I could do something else with it right now. So I've actually invested some money now into getting it, the latest album, because usually I just produce my own stuff, but I've now sent that away to a professional mixing engineer. So, the first tracks come back and it's incredible. And now I've even invested in hiring a PR agent to actually get it out there for me. So come May the 8th, I'm really hoping it kind of takes off and goes off with a bang. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because it's like you might not have done it like that had you.
I wouldn't have.
No. Yeah. And I kind of wonder if you're going to get a better result now because you've actually put that investment in there. So
yeah,
that's
cool. I think with these sort of things, it's important to keep an eye on, obviously, and I think this is, it's a given that globally we're in the midst of a massive tragedy and a massive crisis. There are people dying. You look at, the States and the UK and Italy, Spain. It's tragic, and I would imagine that the weight on the shoulders of the people in those countries at the moment is probably really intense. But if we take that as a given, obviously we're feeling that pain globally, there are silver linings that come across. And one of the things I look at and go, look, I know at the moment, Australian musicians and Australian artists are doing it tough. They're struggling because there is no work. People that were relying on this for their income are in kind of dire straits at the moment, and the government isn't providing a huge amount of support for those people. But I guess the flip side is that when things start to open up again, given that Australia appears to be so far ahead of countries like the UK and the US, it's going to mean that our local festivals and local things are going to need to rely a lot more on Australian music and Australian artists, because they won't be able to bring people in from the States and the UK like they may have been able to before. I think that starts to create a whole bunch of opportunities for people that may not have been there otherwise.
Yeah. That's really interesting that you say that, because we're going to have to reinvigorate all of these different activities locally. And I get that for a lot of people are probably chomping at the bit to want to get out and do stuff. I know that we drove past a few different Bunnings yesterday. We had to go and pick up some bulk supplies from the other side of town just because it was cheaper. And, nice excuse to go for a drive too, because you can only drive for essentials. And, and we just passed 3 different Bunnings, and every single one, the car park was completely full.
Wow.
And I think, and you look out the door, we look out the front door, and there's always people out walking every day now. It's interesting that, people are doing whatever they can just to get out and be with people, even though we're so restricted at the moment in what we can do, and for good reason, right? So, it's so
Aren't
funny.
You glad Bunnings is an essential service? I'm so glad Bunnings is still open.
I know, right? I was there last week. Yeah, and it's we rent here, so we don't even not even doing like any home renovations. I just needed packing tape. And but yeah, I can imagine that I've seen a lot of my neighbors doing lots of projects and prioritizing those things because, well, now they finally got the time and inclination to do it. So yeah. Okay, so you touched a little bit about you're hoping that some things will carry forward into the future. So what specifically would you like to see that's changed that you would like to see carry on into the future once the restrictions are all gone?
Yeah, well, I mean, as I say, I think from a workforce side of things, like I think the fact that people are given a lot more flexibility in their employment now, and they're kind of, a lot of the jobs and things that once upon a time probably just happened because that's the way it always happened. There were probably lots of meetings and things that were happening because we just always had meetings, and now, they've had to be reevaluated. So that's one thing that I kind of hope that coming in from the other side, more people will have the opportunity to work from home and to have that kind of flexibility in their employment, because I think that does mean or make for a better work-life balance for people. It means people can focus more time and energy on their relationships. And interestingly, even though we're not able to go out face to face as much as what we were beforehand, or not at all, really, again, connection and relationship is essential to being humans, and I think that's one of those things that we know that, and so we have found ways to connect despite the fact that we can't touch. And that's probably one of the biggest things that most of us are missing at the moment, is that physical touch, because I think that is an essential need. But we are connecting in new ways, and probably more so than we used to. Like, in the last month and a half, I've had more contact with my brother in New York than I have had in the last 2-3 years. So that's something that I hope continues from the other side. And I just look at too, like, the way that people are becoming, in some ways are learning to live more simply. Like, I think we saw that panic buying at the beginning of the pandemic. And I think that I think in some places, like, it's probably still crazy in some places, but in my local supermarket, the shelves are starting to not empty out as quickly. And I think people are just becoming, more aware of each other, and also just aware of what they do need, which I think is great. The environmental, positives, like you see all these, and some of it, you have to take with a grain of salt, because I did see there was a video floating around the internet not that long ago called "The Dolphins of Venice," and there was this rumor that because people weren't traveling to and from work as much in the canals and things, the canals have become so clear and fresh, and dolphins were starting. And then I'm like, that's fascinating, and looked into it and found out that was all like false. It was fake news. But there is a lot of stuff. There's I saw photos today of villages in India that can now look out and see, like the mountains that they couldn't see once upon it, like 3 months ago because of the air pollution. But stuff like that, I think this is incredible. And what again, what an opportunity, and what are we as a society? What are we going to do with this now that we've had this forced upon us?
Yeah, you raised some really great points there. And like, it's really interesting, we've been talking about climate change for such a long time as a society and in the media a lot. And now we're seeing before our very eyes a pollution, being dealt with because of this. And it's showing people, what life could be like. Like, we were walking out last night and we noticed how bright the sky looked.
Yes.
And really bright. I could see Orion's belt, and I could see like all kinds of constellations, and I was just thinking, wow, is the sky normally this bright? I never really noticed it. Have you had that experience too?
I've had that exact experience. Like, exactly. Came out of my front door the other day and looked at the sky and went, my goodness, it's clear. And and again, it was one of those, is it just because I've never felt the need to go out there and look at it before, or is it actually clearer? Amazing.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, wow. Well, that's really great. So is there anything else that you would like to see change as a result of all of this? Or
it's hard to say, because on one hand, like, I look at it and go, it's also like really interesting and fascinating to find out how much of the way that we were doing things actually wasn't important and wasn't essential. Like, when you look at how many businesses and things have been shut down and industries have been shut down.
Yeah.
And society, we're still going forward. We're still moving. We're still living. We're still breathing. So a lot of those stuff existed purely for, and I'm speaking very general here, so don't shoot me down too much. But how much stuff existed just for the sake of existing and for to drive our consumerism.
Yeah.
So part of me goes, look, it'd be nice if we can come out of the other side of this with a greater sense of purpose about doing things that are legitimately meaningful. Obviously, having said all that, that's all great in the theory and the ideals. Real people have lost their jobs though, and that's the sad part. Like, you don't want people to be unemployed and struggling to put food on the table and things like that. So it's a catch-22, I guess, but it's just an area where I think we can rethink, what as a society do we actually go, these are things that we really need, these are things that bring value and meaning, and what things are go, that was always just there because we let it be there and it really didn't have any value at all.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's so true. And look, I think that like any major shift, there's always going to be things that we look back on and go, oh yeah, after that everything changed. And it is a really good opportunity for us to press that reset button. And
absolutely.
Yeah. How much of our lives is just like going with the flow, and then we never really stop to pause and just go, well, what flow am I going with? It's just,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I wonder if these things happen, not that I'm trying to be airy-fairy or woo-woo about it or anything, but sometimes I just wonder if these things happen just to kind of jolt us, like a collective consciousness. We get jolted. But if Nathan's listening to this, he's probably rolling his eyes right now because he's like the total antithesis to anything, spiritual or woo-woo. Everything's got to be factually proven. So
and maybe it doesn't, maybe it doesn't. And I think that's like what you're doing there, I would see is the essential part of that is finding a meaning and a purpose out of this. And even if that's something you're creating for yourself and saying, okay, I'm creating the meaning that says this has some sort of bigger spiritual significance or not, it's giving you a reason and a hope to look forward beyond this. And I think that's one of the things that people can very easily in these kind of situations and circumstances become quite fatalistic. And that's where it becomes, like a problem. So whatever it is that people are able to grasp onto, however woo-woo it might be at the time, I actually think that's really healthy.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to agree with you right there because I think so too. I think it's great to just reflect on, what is it that drives us in our lives and what are we doing with our lives? And, if we have any opportunity to press that reset button and just pause and go, oh, hang on, what am I doing with my life? Then I think that's always a good thing. And it doesn't usually, I think someone pointed out to us a little while ago that usually times like that are times when you're facing pretty harsh things in your life. Like you might have had an accident or you might have had a heart attack or, like a life-threatening situation or somebody close to you might have died. And my thought around that is, well, wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to have those horrible, horrible things happen in order for us to have that experience of being able to just kind of take stock and go, hang on a minute, that's not the direction I want to go in. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And it's so true, isn't it? A human experience. Like, like you hear stories of people that, they smoked a pack a day and they were never going to get, it wasn't an issue. It didn't matter how many warnings were on the cigarettes. They didn't care until they got lung cancer. And then they, and it's like that with, and it is an interesting part of the human experience that it's not until we suddenly find ourselves with our back against the wall that we need to change. And as you say, like, it would be great if we didn't need that. But whether or not that's just an impossible hypothetical, I don't know.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We shall see. Okay, so Damien, have you written any songs about what's happening at the moment?
Yes, I've definitely, there's been ideas and stuff that have been floating in, unfinished in my head for the last couple of months. And as I've been revisiting them now, they've definitely started to take on more of the flavor and the themes of the current experience. Even it's really funny, like even the single that I'm releasing on May the 8th. So I finished writing that, probably 2 months ago, so before this really hit the fan. But the theme of that particular song, like the song's called "Crowd in My Hands," or "Crowd in My Hand," and the theme of that, like it's to do with me as a struggling musician, and the sense that I would go and perform a gig somewhere, and often when you're starting out, when you're not known, like you are performing to maybe your family and your friends, and sometimes if they've seen you a few times, they don't want to come and see you at all anymore either. So you might be performing to empty bars or whatever it might be on a Monday night or a Tuesday night. And it can become quite disheartening. And I remember coming home from a gig one night, and in my head, I was sitting there going like, in my head though, when I close my eyes, I'm holding a crowd in my hands and believing and visualizing myself standing in front of a massive crowd. And it's really funny because I look at that now and my, the present lived experience that I'm having, which is not just me and my own experience, but this is every musician now is singing and performing in isolation. And it's amazing how much bigger that particular theme that was very individual when I wrote it is now actually very relevant for people as a whole. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. Any chance that you could take us out with one of your songs?
Yes, if you let me grab a guitar, I can probably do
I reckon
live.
That would be awesome.
All right, I'll just go grab one. I'll be back.
While Damien's gone. Yeah, so this is our first episode, and I had no idea what this was going to look like. I really literally have no idea what this is going to look like because I can't see anything. So I'm going to watch it back later. But yeah, if you've got people if you want to be featured on the show, I'm going to be doing this every week. You want to be featured on the show, please get in touch with me. You can PM me via the Whityal page on Facebook. So it's WITYAYL, which stands for What's Important to You and Your Life. And it'd be interesting to see, what other people have to share on this. So, Damien, you there? Because I still can't see.
Yeah, no,
you're black.
And
go for it.
Thank you so much for having me on the first ever episode. I'm really, really thrilled. I'm
honoured. It's amazing. It's so great to catch up too, Damien, because it's been a while since we've had a chat. And so take it away.
All right. Well, this is the song I've been talking about. It's called "Crowd in My Hands" because of this.
Oh, awesome.
Well, I'm an old man, getting cold, man. I don't know when. Gonna find the door into the next world. Is there a next world? Is there rest for those who long for more? I hear the silence, I miss the sirens, feel the violence inside my soul. Another weeknight, she's in the spotlight, meeting midnight. I'm way back going nowhere. I'm going nowhere. Oh. When I close my eyes, got the crowd in my hand. When I close my eyes, got the crowd in my hand. When I close my eyes, got the crowd in my hand. When I close my eyes, got the crowd in my hand. Another takedown, another breakdown, another thought I'm trying not to shake out. Too many lives in, too many wives in. Giving up praying to any jobs in. I need a purpose, is it worthless? I'm a monkey in my own circus. Nobody's laughing, but are you laughing? Do you notice me as you're passing, going nowhere? I'm going nowhere. Oh. When I close my eyes, got the crowd in my hand. When I close my eyes, got the crowd in my hand.
Aware of each other and also just aware of what they do.
When I close my eyes, got the crowd in my hand. When I close my eyes, got the crowd in my hand. Oh, I'm never gonna give up, never gonna give it. 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 'Cause I'm going nowhere. I'm going nowhere. Oh. When I close my eyes, got
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. That's fantastic. Thanks so much, Damien. That is such a brilliant song.
No worries.
Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing. And I can't wait to see your album come out. I know it's just going to be amazing. And have an awesome rest of the day.
Yeah, you too. Happy Easter to you and all your friends, family. Thank you.
You too. All right. No worries. I'll catch you later. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.